First and foremost, Liz, thank you so much for making the time to drive out to MPTF this evening and join us for what we will be a lovely, fun conversation. And congratulations on your Emmy nomination for the special.
Thank you for having me.
So the series and the variety of celebratory specials this past year has garnered 31 Emmy nominations, which is the most, I think, in its history, right? The 31 nominations in one season?
I'm unclear on that, but I would say it's pretty high up there.
Pretty high up there on the list. So do you recall what your earliest memory of the show was growing up?
Yes. I remember being a little kid, probably too young to be watching the show, but I have a brother who's about 5.5 years older than I am. And so I was probably like 8 or 9. And I remember staying up late on a Saturday night, watching some things and then convincing my mom, it's okay. Or coming down, to see what was happening. And my brother would be watching SNL. And at that time, I don't think anyone ever referred to it as SNL. We called it Saturday Night Live. And I remember him watching it, and I would be like, hey, what's happening? And my brother is a huge Steve Martin fan. So I got to listen to him run around the house for hours on end, saying, I'm a wild and crazy guy. So that would probably be my first memories of Saturday Night Live.
What was your favorite sketch growing up?
Growing up, I think, watching when I was young, watching reruns and seeing Gilda Radner up there doing Rosanna Dana. And I didn't, I saw her with big hair and I didn't understand. But as I got older and I went back and watched those, I'm like, wow, she was so amazing, and how cool to be in the spotlight at that time and just show her gift to the world. But that was an impact to me. Steve Martin, and then do you want me to go through all of them as we go through, or you want to hit this a little later?
We'll hit on it a little later.
Okay.
I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, before we move forward into the special, about some of your favorites. And I imagine you're growing up as a kid, you see it for the first time, right?
Yep.
And then now here you are, directing the series. Do you ever have that surreal moment where you ask yourself, oh my gosh, how did I get here?
Of course. I think I've had a few pinch me moments, especially this year. It's definitely something I'm like, how did I get here? And I look back at my career and where I started, and I got my start. I went to Boston University and I studied film. Originally, I thought I was going to study business. Boston? Yeah. Okay, no, but that's great. That's great. So I went to BU, picked the school randomly, there's a long story behind that, I guess. But I went to BU. I started studying business, and I was like, this is not for me. And I ended up finding the advertising department, and then I was like, okay, creative and business, but this still isn't for me. And I had, when I was in high school, my junior year of high school, I had moved to Seoul, South Korea. And I was there, and I started sending my friends, I borrowed my neighbor's video camera, and I started making movies to show them what Korea was all about. And in those videos, they slowly turned into sketches. And that's where I first started directing sketches. And so I got my new friends to be in silly little things. And that's where I got the bug for it. And so then when I was in college, I was like, well, wait, what if I could make a career out of this? And I was a total TV junkie as a kid. I watched every sitcom that was ever on TV. And I loved Penny Marshall and Laverne and Shirley. And yes. And growing up with all of that, and from Facts of Life to, Keep on Going, Growing Pains, all of it. And that's kind of where I got the itch. And then in school, I turned to my dad and I said, hey, they've got a great film program here. He's like, oh, no. And I said, I think I could do something with this. And I started studying film, and I think we had one TV class. And in that TV class, in one of the TV, it was a combined TV film class. We had a professor who was a producer in Hollywood who came out, and he taught us how to do a pitch meeting on, you've got a show you want to pitch, you got a movie you want to pitch. It was a really cool class. And at the end of that class, you pitched your idea. And I was like, that guy's going to go back to Hollywood with all our pitches and sell something from this. But yeah, that was my first hands-on making short films, and a lot of them were I thought were funny. But looking at them now, I'm like, oh, that's not as good as I thought. But that's where I got my start doing that, and I was inspired, by SNL.
That's remarkable. And I should point out that you're an incredibly accomplished director even prior to joining Saturday Night Live.
Thank you.
Having directed Ellen and one of my favorites growing up, MTV's Total Request Live. So if you're from my generation, I know you love the show too. But we'll get to some of the music in the series and on the special in a bit. But longtime director Don Roy King passed the baton to you in 2021. Will you share with us how he mentored you and what that transition process was like?
Yeah, when I came in, what was great about our transition is they let me just observe 2 episodes. And I had been to a show before when Beth McCarthy Miller was there directing. And but it was just nice to be in the control room, see Don do his thing, and realize what a chaotic, crazy establishment this was. And it's a writer's show. It's all about the writers, and it's Lauren's baby, and it's just making those words come to life. And they always want the written word to be the best it can, and whatever joke can be the best will be the best. And there were so many changes to manage. So watching Don, physical, like we still use paper on Saturdays because there's no way to do it digitally, or at least we haven't found the way. It might be impossible. But watching him go through that whole process, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be alone. This is going to be me doing that as well. And I feel like after the first week, I was like, hey, Don, when do you eat and sleep? Because I never saw this man eat once. And I'm like, it's all about managing your time well. And that was kind of his words of wisdom to me. And then what was nice is I have a relationship with Beth McCarthy Miller. We were friends when I started at MTV. She was the senior director. And then she left to do the Jon Stewart show when it went network. And then when that was before it was The Daily Show, he had his own talk show, and then that didn't work out. And then she ended up getting SNL. And so I was always like, if I could have a smidge of her success, I'm going to do okay. But when I got this job, she was one of my first calls, and I said, hey, guess what I did? And she said, buckle in, enjoy the ride, and trust your gut. And that's one of the things I think I've realized is to trust your gut there.
You're the 5th director in the show's history. What do you think you bring creatively to the table so that the show continues to evolve?
I think keeping up with the changes, first of all, especially that first year, is just like how to manage everything. And you truly, the sketch evolves all week. So Wednesday, you get the first pass of it. I start reading them at about 10 o'clock in the morning and up until read through, and I just write my notes as quickly as I can, like whether I need a stuntman, a choreographer, a breakaway wall. And that sketch throughout the week continues to evolve. And it's just staying on top of that and managing it and then making it as successful as you can. And so I think now, as I've been there, I've just finished my 4th year. Like now I feel like I'm actually bringing more of myself to the show and offering up, good ideas to the writers. I'm like, hey, if we did this, I think this will sell this joke a little bit better. And so it's just our show is all about collaboration and how fun to collaborate with a bunch of people that we're just trying to make people laugh. And it's a dream job, it really is.
So Liz brought 4 of her favorite sketches from the special to share with us this evening. And, a lot of the sketches in the special were updated versions of some classic sketches that audiences that we all love. One of my favorites was Coffee Talk. I'm sure you guys remember that. So we have a clip here, so let's roll that clip.
I think, in something like this sketch, it's me going back and watching some of the original ones and making sure I stay true to the formula or the pattern that was created before, because you don't want to change it. It's already genius. But getting to one of my favorite sketches is Coffee Talk, when it's Mike Myers with Madonna and Rosie O'Donnell on the couch, and all of a sudden Barbara Streisand comes in, right? So to have this idea that came up, it started off with just Bronx Beat, and then they were talking about maybe we combine them, and then I was like, yes. I mean, Linda Richmond, seeing Mike Myers get into that outfit again, it was just priceless. So I feel like my job was just staying true to what the original was and enjoying it and following them. I feel very lucky to get to work with them. It was incredible.
What's the difference between preparing for the weekly episodes versus how you had to prepare for the special?
The weekly episode, the special we kind of treated like a weekly episode, funny enough. But the weekly episode is a long week. Wednesday is the read-through day. We also go into production design after that to talk about, how we're going to lay out the set and where we can put it on the stage. And then Thursday, we rehearse music, and then along with half of our sketches. And then Friday, we finish the rest of our sketches, and usually the harder ones on Friday, whether they're musicals or a big stunt, or if we need to actually shoot it or rehearse it on the actual set. On Thursday, we just have flats with, a stand-in door or a window where things are going to be. And then Saturday morning, you walk in and it's like Christmas. People are out on the set just painting everything, hanging sconces, fixing, rugs, fixing, pillows on couches. There's just so many people, so many talented people that I work with creating this. And I always say it feels like Christmas. And the special, we started talking about it, a few months prior, and there were ideas starting to float around. And when I did my I went back and I researched, and I watched the 25th anniversary, and I watched the 40th, and I was like, oh, this isn't going to be too bad. It's very presentational, a little bit more like an award show or something like that. And they had like 4 live sketches. We did like 15, and we did like 3 wall sets too. So with an obstacle of the bleachers on the floor. So that was incredibly challenging. And what we really had to do is we started early, and we got them to narrow, like once our production week started, we narrowed down to what we thought our final sketches were going to be. There was some swing space there, but our spaces where we could shoot were limited because of the obstacle of the bleachers. So we came up with an idea of creating a camera complement that I could substitute instead of using a PED camera, which is what we normally use, and we have a crane. The crane is retired for the special because there's no room. But literally I'd had handhelds on sticks, just on wheels with a wide lens, because I would be so close to our sketch that if I had used a PED, I would have been in the scene with them. So it was just a game of figuring out it was a puzzle, just figuring out how to do it. And our staging crew, above amazing, because they were missing their storage areas of where to store these sets. So it was truly just a wild game of trying to figure out how to fit it all and make it work.
I understand too that there were sketch rehearsal, but there wasn't the full dress rehearsal in front of the audience. Like, maybe you have had the opportunity to go see the show. They do the dress rehearsal, a full dress rehearsal in front of audience members. But that wasn't the case this time.
No. So normally on a show week, so we would, I say Saturday morning, but it's around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We rehearse every sketch, top to bottom, and hopefully you have all the elements. Everybody's in their hair and makeup and their wardrobe, or at least the best they can be at that time. And our set is hopefully ready as well. And then after that, we get changes from the writers, and we manage those changes. And then we go into dress rehearsal, which takes place at 8 o'clock. And then usually that ends around 10 or or 10:15. That will run 30 minutes heavy usually from what the show will be, 30 to 35. And then we decide what moves forward. And so now that you've heard all these sketches in front of an audience and you got to hear the laughs and you know what worked and what didn't work, and you were able to change some jokes too, like, oh, if we do this differently, or we just cut this piece out, this is too much here, we just get right to it, it's going to play great. So we didn't have that opportunity with special. It's literally, when we started rehearsals, I was rehearsing with stand-ins because not everybody was available to me because the concert was happening across the street.
Right.
But it wasn't just a concert. Also, it used a lot of our cast members and a lot of the alumni that were coming back. So it was a scheduling snafu of how to rehearse. But it gave me, what was nice is it gave me enough time to be ready for the changes that came. So I could just create the shell and then just plug the people in.
So we have another clip that demonstrates some of this off the cuff, no dress rehearsal. So let's take a look at that. So will you share with us some of the behind the scenes and what was sort of off the cuff and sort of how that went down when you're, in your directing hot seat?
Yeah, so we actually did rehearse this, I think, with almost everybody. I'm not sure if John Hamm was there. That part's unclear in my head right now. But I know everybody else was there. And even Steven Spielberg was supposed to be a part of it. And we ended up, I think, cutting his part just for time. But getting to work with Steven, I'm a director. I'm working with Steven Spielberg. I'm telling you what he's doing. I mean, that's incredible in itself. And then Meryl Streep, I'm like, oh my goodness. She was so delightful, so lovely. And she was like, I'm going to memorize the script. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, hold on. This show is cue card based, so they can change the script all the time. And so I pulled a writer over and I'm like, hey, Meryl wants to memorize this. So I think, they did some tweaks off stage and that's where some of the comedy comes, because they were trying out new things and then the laughter, and then just some of what they're saying is just completely absurd. But I mean, it was such a great sketch and just a great group of people, and you never would have thought any of that would have come out of their mouths. So I don't know, I thought it was incredible.
What would you say was one of the most challenging aspects of directing special?
I started talking about the bleachers.
Yeah,
that was it. That was huge, and just for everybody, and just every department, not just myself. If you think about hair and makeup, and sets and props department and lighting, and just turning around to go into the next sketch, it was just amazing and miraculous. Just nobody ever complains. They just do their job, and we are all work as a team and excited to be there. And that's really cool, especially after 50 years. There's a lot of people that have been there from the beginning, actually, and working with them and talking to them about their experience is, I have fun with that. It's just like, what happened way back in the day when, but it's great.
Now, as you mentioned, the special is packed with so many alumni and special guest stars. We have another clip that Liz brought along, starring Robert De Niro and Rachel Dratch, that we'll play.
Rachel Dratch is just amazing, and Paula and Rachel write it, and it was just great to work with them, and especially growing up and watching these sketches and then working with them, that's pretty incredible. But then Robert De Niro, you guys, come on! How badly did I want to say, hey? But anyway, it was a lot of fun. And for this sketch, we didn't have Drew Barrymore, and Io. I believe she was able to come to one rehearsal, the last rehearsal that we did. So Drew watched it on a playback and then did her thing.
There's so many alumni that came back. You talked a little bit about the preparation and just coordinating all the schedules. What does it mean to you, personally and professionally, to be able to have directed this special and work with all of these, incredible comedians and actors who returned?
I think this is like the pinch me moment, and I'm just like incredibly grateful for the opportunity, and that I'm honored that Lauren trusted me enough to do this. And it's just really cool to see all these former cast members come back, and they know the experience of what it's like in a production week, and they understand the chaos and the craziness. And it's like you're part of you're an alumni of a fraternity or a sorority or a team that you were once on, and you come back and you visit, and they get it. And so many people came up to me and were like, "You have the hardest job here tonight," and it's like, wow, way to make it even harder, you guys. But it's very cool to get an opportunity to work with people that you've watched, that you've grown up with, and I don't take it for granted.
And speaking of Lauren, what is your working dynamic with him?
Lauren is, you see a lot of people imitate Lauren, like you've seen over the years, and I was like, oh, that can't be true. And then you're like, oh, there's some truth to that. I get it now. But I respect Lauren so much. I mean, he's created this, I wanted to say an empire, but it's like the show has lasted, it's going to be 51 years now, and it's pretty incredible that a show can last that long and still be relevant. And we all know, people will say, it was best during this year or that year or these years. But it's pretty wild that the show has been able to maintain, and he's the reason. And he's still very much a part of everything, of every process. And sometimes there'll be a lot of changes between dress and air, and he'll come into the control room and be like, "Hey, Liz, you're gonna be okay?" And I'll be like, "We'll see." And then, one of his famous lines is we don't start the show because we're ready. We start the show because it's 11:30. So,
again, live television.
Yep.
So we have another clip featuring some of the great alumni who returned for the special. So let's roll that clip. That particular clip about why, it's one of your favorites.
I did not know that Will Ferrell was coming out in that outfit. I had no idea. And then when he showed up, I was like, oh my God. And Izu was laughing. And then, we have shots planned, right? And so then it's he started grinding on Marcelo, and I'm like, oh shoot, okay, I gotta cover this. So it just took it took me by surprise, and I think it took everyone by surprise. And then it's just like giving them a playground to play in, and then giving them also some freedom to free for all a little bit. Improv.
So we talked a little bit about your background, having directed for MTV, and one of the big aspects of Saturday Night Live is the musical performance. So will you talk to us a little bit about what goes on, for the special, planning the musical performances in what is a very small studio? Have any of you been to Saturday Night Live, seen a live taping? Okay, so you know how small that studio is and the challenges it might pose for a musical production. So can you talk a little bit about the series and the special, and what's entailed with executing that?
So for the special, we eliminated 2 spaces that we'd normally put a sketch in. We have sketches that come in and out, that roll in and are built, and then other sketches that are built in a space and remain in that space. So we lost 2 stage spaces where we would normally put 2 sketches, and we created a second music stage there. So that's where we did Lil Wayne and Miley Cyrus with Brandy. Oh, forgive me. It'll come to me in a moment. And that's where we did those performances. And the other side was Paul McCartney. And so, we lost real estate, but it's a lot of the times it's collaborating with the artists. And in those, it wasn't, there was nothing high tech. It was performing on our stage. I think Lil Wayne had a lot of video content. I believe Miley was mainly a curtain and all, and lighting. So actually Paul McCartney had a lot of video as well, but not as complex as some of our regular performances that have been taking place during the series. So it used to be that people would just come and be happy to perform on the SNL performance stage, right? And you knew exactly where they were performing. And then somewhere in like the last 10, 15 years, it's evolved over time. It's almost happened on every show, actually, but I think it probably started on SNL, where an artist would come in with a creative idea and either wanting to create a whole different environment or mimic something from their music video. And sometimes you're all in for it, and then sometimes you don't have time for it because you have the rest of the show. So it can be very complex, but it also can be very fun and collaborative. So like, do you want an example of something from the series? Yeah. This year we had Lady Gaga on, and that was one of my favorite performances, or both of them were two of my favorite performances this season. And she's the same as she was when she first started. I had the opportunity to do, I believe it was her first TV performance back in 2007, and it was for MTV VH1 and Logo's New Now Next Awards. And she wanted to be involved in the creative process back then, and she still wants to, but except for now, she really knows what she's doing. And it's just really nice to collaborate with somebody. And like, we Zoomed and talked about her performances that she was going to do and some of her ideas. And then she came to the set on a Monday, and we walked through, myself and her choreographer, and we talked about where we could do certain things, and then I let them have the reins, and then show me what they wanted to do, and then we tried to curb it when we needed to, and I think they both ended up being great performances, and fun. I enjoy that part, and at MTV I got to, I in a way I say MTV is like. Actually, a lot of people from MTV will say this. It was our grad school. That's where I really learned, how to do what I do, and I was given the opportunity. And Beth McCarthy Miller was the senior director when I walked in at MTV, and I got my job through an alumni book at Boston University from a director named Joe Perota. And thankfully, Joe called. I sent him this is before email. I sent him a letter and a cover letter and a resume, and he called me up the weekend I graduated and was like, "Hey, if you ever were in New York, I'll give you a tour." I have a cousin that lives in New York. I went to New York. And then he's like, "Hey, if you ever lived here, maybe we give you a job." And I took that as a job opportunity. And I moved to New York, no money. And I started working there here and there, one day a week, sometimes 3 days a week, another time. And then Beth was the senior director, and she was like, "Okay, you want to be, what is your dream? Do you want to be a producer? Do you want to be a director?" And I was like, I want to be a director. And so she started training me to AD and stage manage. And then as people left, like herself, she took a crew with her. She took a stage manager, she took an AD, and that allowed me to move up. And then I started ADing, and I started stage managing, and then eventually directing. And there were, once I was hired as a director, there were three of us. There were three staff directors. And I got to work on so many incredible things, from game shows, talk shows, red carpet shows, award shows, and a ton of music, and a ton of it was live. And like, what a great experience. And it kind of set me up for this show. And I'm incredibly grateful for that too. And just, being young and given that opportunity to make really cool content was pretty incredible.
And I have to say, the Gaga show, it made that whole space even look larger, because you had her moving around. She was coming in through like the corridors and the tiny, hallways. So it made the space, the creativity behind that made the space seem even larger than life. So, and speaking of just all the talented people that go into the show, I mean, it's such a massive collaboration, as you mentioned. Everyone from your writers, the team with you in the control room. You've got your set decorators, wardrobe, hair, makeup, your cast. What would you say you value most about your cast and crew?
We're all in it together. We're one big team. I played team sports actually all the way through college, and I feel like that's what this is. It's just I'm on another team with a bunch of people, and we all want the same thing. And I'm incredibly grateful to work with so many talented people, and that are really good at their job. And I want to say some of the best of the best. And their input on certain things is invaluable, and especially I'll have camera guys that will come up to me and be like, hey, we're all open. We'll be like, I don't have room over here. Okay, well, let's figure out how do we get you more room over here. So it's just communicating with one another and making the best possible product possible, and a collaboration.
So, the show, while you're, writing and working it out all week long, there's so many sketches that are impacted by the news cycle, right? So you've got to keep it timely. And because we're living in this environment where things change on a dime, like any given moment, have there been times this past season where you've had to tear everything up and start all over again?
Yes, definitely. Sometimes it happens to a regular sketch that you're planning, but mainly it's the cold open that is affected the most. And I feel like sometimes we'll have an idea of something we're going to do, and then something happens in the news, and it's just rip it up and throw it out. Sometimes it's a matter of just changing the idea slightly, but it can affect everything that you've already rehearsed and everything you've already planned. And usually by Saturday, hopefully it's all locked or an idea of what you're doing. Sometimes the cold open we won't know until Saturday. Yeah, but it's a fun challenge.
What do you typically think about, like, right before the show begins? You're sitting, like, right before, like, in the 5 seconds it's going down.
Oh, the 5 seconds.
Right before.
Okay. I hope this works. It's just like I hope I was able to accommodate all the changes and that they make sense. And because sometimes you've been given, I literally in the middle of the show, sometimes somebody will be over my shoulder, slipping through my script, and I'll be directing a sketch, and they'll start crossing out stuff, and I'll be like, oh, okay, and they'll flag it, and I'll turn to my AD, and I'm like, okay, let me know if this is going to impact it, especially if it's the sketch I'm in. So that's pretty incredible sometimes. Or it'll be like, we're running over, we want to get out of this so we have room for the next sketch. Bail. And it's like, bail? Yeah, bail. And it's like, okay, talking to my stage managers, I'm like, we're going, you guys. tell the cast goodbye. So you try to get out on a good line and then just kill it and go. But it's yeah, that's pretty crazy.
So, I mean, it's working.
So what am I thinking is, I hope it all goes okay.
Would you say that applies to the special as well?
Oh, yeah, 100%, especially without a dress rehearsal. Yeah, it's just like, I hope this works. I also hope that we're able to make the set changes and the turnovers for every department, set, hair, makeup, and getting, a cast member out there who may have been in something else and making sure they're there. So, cameras. Yeah,
so I have to applaud you because one of the many strengths of Saturday Night Live is its ability to premiere new talent and find fresh faces, new comedians, amplify new voices. What's your process for finding all these people?
That I'm lucky to not be a part of, actually, except for auditions. I'll go in for auditions after Lauren and the producers and the head writers have, put their eye on somebody, and we'll call in a bunch of people and do a round of auditions. And getting to talk to them before they go on is just, some of them are very nervous, and some of them are very excited, and some of them are seasoned, some of them aren't. And it's just like, hey, you made it this far, congratulations, and good luck, and just be yourself out there. But it's amazing, the people that have come through. And I think in the documentary, one of the documentaries this past year, we showed a bunch of clips of auditions. And I don't think I realized, but there was Dana Carvey with his chop and broccoli. And I was like, that's amazing. He did that in his audition? That's pretty cool.
So we're here at MPTF, which is home to industry veterans in our business. And many of them are also TV Academy voters. And they're often curious about your journey, how you got to where you are. So I have a few questions about that, moving into this final segment. Who or what inspired you to want to pursue a career as a director?
Well, I think it started with my mom, telling me at a young age that I can grow up to be anything I wanted to be. And that's pretty cool. And then I think, getting the opportunity to direct my own shorts when I lived in Korea, and then getting the opportunity in college, and then finding MTV, I just feel like I put my hand on the right door each time, and I just walked in. And I feel incredibly grateful for that. But it's just like, MTV was just such a supportive place. I don't know if there's something that exists like that, but it's like, that's my TV family. I mean, all these places that I've worked become my TV family. In fact, there's somebody here from Ellen. Hi, Ronnie. And it's like you grow up together and you work really hard, and hopefully there's people along the way that tell you you can do this if you want to do this. And Beth McCarthy Miller was one of those people. Joe Perota, the director that brought me in as a PA, he was one of those people. Joe DeMeo. It's just like so many people. You want to do something, you can do it, and just encouraged me to follow what I wanted to do. And I feel so lucky to have landed in a place that gave me an opportunity to do that.
You're widely known for directing live specials and, variety shows. Is there a particular reason you're drawn to that platform?
It's where I got the first door open, and so that's what I've embraced, and I feel like I've become good at it. I like challenging myself a little bit, and so actually when I was at Ellen, I had a great desire to jump into scripted and narrative, and at least in my summers, I was like, hey, I got my summers off. I'd love to do this. So I started shadowing directors. I would call up certain directors or friends or friends of friends, or call up producers on productions that I knew people and said, hey, or my agent would call some people, and I got some shadowing opportunities, which was like priceless. And that's kind of how I started at MTV. When I was a production assistant, there were so many directors there. I mean, there were like 5 kind of in rotation, and I got to watch them all do their craft, and they're all a little different. And it helped me create my style and how I direct. And I mean, shadowing people in the narrative world was priceless too. And I think it helped me in where I am now. I kind of feel like I just put more things in my toolbox. And, working at Ellen, which was, connected to Warner Brothers, they gave me the opportunity to also do a program there called the WB Episodic Training Program. So Bethany Rooney is a fabulous director, and she ran the program at the time. I believe Mary Lou Belli also, she did a little snippet of it the year I was there, and I think now they both do it together. But literally we learned Bethany's way of breaking down a script for story and how to tell that story from a director's point of view. And we basically took the show was Pretty Little Liars, and the show was still in production, so the sets were still up at Warner Brothers. So we'd go onto their stages and talk about how we'd block a scene, how we would work with a DP. They brought in DPs. We'd go through our shot list, and so it was like a way to hone your craft without being under pressure and without getting fired. It's like, we'll give you an opportunity to show us what you would do. And most of the time there's no wrong way. There are a few wrong ways, but everyone has a different way of telling a story. And it was a really cool experience. And I just feel like taking those opportunities help make me who I am as a director.
Who is your favorite director?
Oh, that's hard. I mean, I just drove on Spielberg Drive. I feel like I have to say Steven Spielberg. I don't know. I have so many. That's a really hard one. But I lean, like, when I was first starting and I started doing my short films, like Penny Marshall. I think there was a Penny Marshall fan over here. I mean, what a really cool thing she did. And, like, when League of Their Own came out, I played softball in college. And I was working that summer, or before it came out, the summer before, I was working as a lifeguard. A friend of mine, I was also teaching swim lessons, and one of the mothers was like, hey, I know the coach who's getting, like, the background actors in that film. And I was like, oh my God, I would love to be one of the people out there playing baseball. And I just came in too late. But Penny Marshall is somebody I admired. Jodie Foster, just going from acting to directing. I mean, that was like, I was in school when Silence of the Lambs came out, and I know she didn't direct that. That was Jonathan Demme, but then she went on to do things, and it's just really cool to see other female directors out there. And Beth McCarthy Miller is one of those too for me. And I didn't realize especially when I was at MTV, I didn't realize the impact of it until she left, and then you don't see as many, and it's great that there are more and more as I age, as we go.
You're as young as you want to be.
Exactly.
What's the best career advice you've ever received?
I think trust your gut. That's one of them, and I did an interview recently with Beth McCarthy Miller. We were both chatting about our experience with the 50, and she said, she talked about how she worked at a lot of jobs that she didn't want to do at the time, but it connected her to, especially when she was younger, and it connected her to productions that she wanted to work on later in life, and created relationships. And I feel like that's a really cool thing. And then I think, kind of what I just said before too, is just honing your craft and making yourself better in your field, and doing what you can. And I went out and was shadowing directors and people I didn't know, and just say, or friends be like, hey, I know this guy. And I'd be like, oh, let's see if I can go over there and just hang out for a day or a week. And it's just, making yourself more valuable and putting more tools in your toolbox, and never burn a bridge. Because one day your intern is going to be your boss. It's happened.
It happens. And the final question, what is your vision moving forward into next season? What's your vision moving forward into next season?
I feel like, I don't want to jinx it, but I want to say I feel like next season is going to feel really good compared to this season, because nothing will ever be as hard as last year was. And I feel like we came out of the gate last year. We had the election. We had Maya Rudolph there, who's incredible, and we had Dana Carvey. That was a dream come true. And I feel like this season is, we're all excited to come back and make people laugh.
Thank you, Liz, for joining us, and congratulations again.
Thank you.